Ahoy, hoy, people. Now 37 for one day, getting very old. Before I expire, I think I should let everyone know my thoughts on how the world could be a better place. This is obviously just in theory. So, if I was calling the shots, here are some very basic, simple things I would do. Apologize for disorganization. I'm just going off the top of my head. Number one, I would get rid of nuclear weapons. I would consult the top scientists on how to do so safely so that you don't cause a nuclear holocaust by getting rid of the nuclear weapons. But this to me seems to be paramount because it's something that, you know, the wrong hoople, whether in power or not in power, gets a hold of something heavy enough, humanity could be destroyed in one instant. So you just got to get rid of nukes. Uh, Number two and three are tied. I want to do something for poverty in a big way, and I mean real world poverty. There's Canadian poverty of which I suffer a little bit, but however, I do have a wonderful home and leftover dinners for my family, in my wonderful apartment, so I consider myself quite lucky on that account, even though I only live about halfway to the poverty line, and that's when the poverty line used to be 20,000. So I live skinny, so I understand it. But look, in a world with so much wealth and resource, there should be no homelessness and no starvation. That is I don't think that's socialist. I think that just requires a certain amount of human decency. I mean, I think it's an easy solve in Canada with so much resources at the ready. It would be a harder solve in the third world countries because it would involve more shipping of resources. But I don't know if this is just naivety on my part, but I think even the most hardened warlords, would welcome food planes and trucks and things like that to feed their people. I've never dealt with one, so I don't know. I never dealt with a hardened warlord, but except my father, but he never served any war. So food and shelter and then obviously clothing to everybody in the whole world. I think that's doesn't need to be up for debate. The other thing I'd do is we really got to do something about this climate change. Um, it it also like the nuclear thing, uh, although somewhat more slowly, obviously, it can end us as a civilization. And you often see the most vulnerable people are the most prone to this. I remember some guy, I forget from which country, held an underwater meeting on climate change, which is really cool. And he seemed to have some really good policies, but he was deposed. So what can you do? Bad people seem to always rise to power. And for the climate change deniers, like I'm not a climatologist, right? Let's say, let's say the climate, just for the sake of argument, let's say the climate change deniers are right. Well, uh, or let's say, perhaps more realistically, that with the 1880s natural warming period that coincided with the Industrial Revolution, there is nothing we could do, and we are doomed to not exist anyway. That's just the way things had to evolve. Let's just humor that that's accurate for a second. I don't believe it is, but wouldn't even if it is, wouldn't you want to know that we did everything we could to try to survive and to live in symbiosis with the planet, and not be so fucking destructive, and keep ourselves alive as well as all of, for lack of a better term, God's creatures, whether you believe in God or not. You know, we got to be doing everything we can. And I don't know that much about this stuff, but I think I'd be consulting the experts on it again to make to make sure to get it done. Otherwise than that, obviously we see some glaring things going on with police. I've been mostly silent on this, but I think that's because I don't have anything unique to add to this. Uh, you coppers in the States and Canada and probably other places for that matter are racist. Not all yes, not every single person wearing a badge is a bad dude, but structurally you are fucking racist. You're killing people, and now the lens is being shone on you, and you kill more black people. Like, what the fuck? Stop that shit. Unarmed, shooting them in the back. Totally innocent people. And then that 17-year-old white hillbilly, he goes buck with I think it was a machine gun, and they wait till the next day to arrest that motherfucker. So I think, in a general sense, it might be a good idea to get rid of guns along with nuclear weapons. Take them out of the equation. We don't need them in society. Um, I'm not ideologically opposed to hunting and things like that. It's probably a lot cleaner and more decent than how we get our meat at the grocery store, oftentimes. And I certainly never be a vegetarian. As much as I admire the morality of that policy, my blood type, my body needs meat. I can do well without starches and dairy stuff like that, but I need vegetables and I need meat. So that's my stance on that, I guess. And I think I have to say something just in closing about disability related issues. And this is not something that I experience, but I've learned more in doing my film that will hopefully be finished by the end of this year and be out next year sometime. I don't agree with the care facility scenario. I mean, it's certainly better than being, left off in the streets or, um, maybe stuck in an abusive family scenario or a scenario where you couldn't quite be your full self. But I think that it should be an option and it should be free that disabled folks should be able to have live-in workers. I know that more wealthy ones are able to do this, but for those of us who are impoverished and hey, I mean, I don't need that kind of thing right now. I get help from the Red Cross every 2 weeks. My mom helps in on the other times, but I really think the live-in worker as opposed to the care facility, because again, those of us that are most vulnerable are most affected. um, I know someone who can only have visits 20 minutes at a time and is not allowed to leave their house, even though, we don't really have any intercommunity COVID cases right now. And it seems to me that somebody in the situation of that would need at least as many visits and socialization as a quote unquote average person, if not more, right? So greater dignity for that. Um, no care facilities whenever possible, and you know, have live-in workers so that folks that are that disabled can have as much of a full life as they would like. And I mean, obviously, this is further complicated if somebody doesn't have their mental faculties and things like that. And I'm certainly not saying abolish hospitals or care facilities, not at all. But just we need a greater independence and a greater chance to live a full life. And one more point, and this might be the most controversial point of all in my saving the world kind of thing. Um, I don't believe that people should have to work. Now, this is not a knock on anybody who is working because I know that you work because you have to work because that's what our society is set up and you need to make that money. So just to survive and especially if you have like dependents and kids and stuff. I've been very lucky to be able to squeak by on the generosity of my family, and I think it's a little bit easier for someone like me to access charity than the average person. But I really I picture a world where everybody is able to pursue their fancy. Yeah, nobody has to work, right? And that's achieved by a guaranteed basic income. I know that's what I envision that at for starters would be a lot less than most working people live on. But I envision a guaranteed income of at least 20,000 for starters, maybe 25. And again, I'm not saying this you're not allowed to work or whatever. I think that should still be an option, but I don't think anybody should have to. And I think that's wrong morality that we've been brainwashed into believing we have to. And oh, what well, if everybody pursues their fancy, wouldn't they just be lazy? Well, maybe, maybe, but how about, some guy doesn't have to work at McDonald's and he doesn't undercook my burger because he's too high because he can't stand being at McDonald's and I get salmonella because, he's miserable at McDonald's. And then let's say he had a kid and and kid's mom is working Walmart greeter and she can't get enough doing a Walmart greeter job, so she had to go on food stamps too, and they hate each other. Baby mama and baby daddy hate each other, right? So baby grows up in a miserable world of just no hopes and dreams or passions or culture or anything, right? So baby ends up being miserable. You just gave everybody enough to live so they could pursue their fancy. I think we have a better society. And will we have a lot of bad art from that? Sure, sure. But we have a lot of bad art now, and I would say even three-quarters of the stuff that gets over and successful, especially in today's time of really poor taste, is shitty. So, and I know these are subjective judgments, but that's the way I feel about it. So, yeah, give everybody enough to live, and who like a lazy person isn't hurting nobody. I mean, I'm talking about even if you don't have anything wrong with you, and you're just sitting around with your finger in your bum all day long. Like, it's not hurting nobody. But somebody who's overstressed and has to do something they hate and waste their time, well, that somebody might be more liable to go on a shooting spree. Laziness never killed nobody. The only thing laziness does is make you feel bad about yourself. And so, and I do think that with just the monotony of like the average job and the misery and how shitty it feels, I think that actually overall you would see better art and you would see better human achievement because we wouldn't be stuck in the drudgery and we'd be able to um we'd be able to yeah, like achieve, like reach our full potentials much easier. And yeah, we'd evolve as a species and we wouldn't have, starvation, homelessness, and nuclear war, and the we could mitigate the dangers from climate change, and we'd probably get a lot further on healthcare, and we'd have better scientific exploration. Like maybe we could go to all visit all the planets, and interdimensional travel even is possible, right? If you can dream it, it's possible. So that's what I want. I want us to achieve our highest ideal as a species, and I think the way that we are set up is a way that stops that from happening. The wealth trickles all up. Yeah, you guys hear those trickle down economy. Oh, well, these rich guys and then hiring, poor people to be their caddies. Good at these richies happen because no, man, these richies should be helping everybody else. So basically, you do this by taxing the richest of all, right? And it goes into public funds that are and the people that are making these decisions are honest, not rip people off, and you know, and it really, and you could still have people way richer than the average, but you got to bring that bottom up, and and I think it's possible. Like uh, I think it's pretty clear what I'm saying here is that, I'm not really obviously a fan of capitalism, certainly not the corporatism that's, evolved from that and allows, all the wealth in the world to funnel up to 12 people or whatever it is, right? Um, but one does have to admit that is I think a more egalitarian system than a monarchy where you're just like in control by birthright. I suppose that could be argued because maybe you could say feudalism, uh, the lords were more responsible to their peasants, whereas the market is just this like fucking uncontrollable beast, right? Perhaps, maybe, and I'd like to open some discussion on this. But and for those that think that well it will always be capitalism, well no, because it wasn't always capitalism, right? Capitalism's, I mean, I don't know. Um, I'm I'm thinking the merchant class would have started in the Renaissance. I could be wrong about this, but obviously it didn't become like I think the system under which the world was ruled until industrial revolution times, really, right? I think, is that right? I could be sorry, I'm not, if I'm off the history here, but yeah, a I envision a humanity where we achieve our highest potential, that we are not seduced by base things like wealth. The rulers are just. I think that like Plato's philosopher kings honestly is the closest that I've seen of this, because you don't you basically live an austere kind of poor life and you rule because it's your duty. And obviously, even if you take the money corruption out of it, there could still be a power corruption there. So it's not like an airtight system, but no system is an airtight system. But I guess ultimately, imagine if our rulers acted with compassion as the number one criteria as opposed to greed, right? So, just some food for thought. I'm 37 now, and that's how I think the world could be different.